baby robot faces, swarms of robots, tons of Mr. Smiths, Mr. Smith flying in a suit, which is iconic, and guys just going like this for hours.
Hey everyone, welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John. We are concluding our original Matrix trilogy today with the Matrix Part 3 Revolutions. Should be fun stuff. Definitely some crazy stuff. If you go back and look at the first Matrix movie,
crazy,
and you look at the third one, there's definitely... Is the movie as good? No. But is there a huge jump in technology as far as what they did with the first one to the third one? Yeah, and there's a lot of cool shots in this. And if you talk about... has this movie held up over time effects-wise? It definitely has, and so we're definitely going to talk about the effects and some of the stuff they did in here. So, Nick, anything that really visual effects-wise that popped out to you is just like, you're like, man, that looks really impressive. Or looking back at the first or second Matrix movie, you wish they would have had more of the old school stuff. Like, I know in the second one, you wish they had more bullet time. Did you get anything closer to bullet time-esque stuff that...
We didn't really have bullet time in this movie.
No, I don't think we did either. So you were hoping that you would, because in the second one, you're like, I wish they would have had more bullet time. We didn't really get that here either, right?
No, we didn't get bullet time. No. But we did get more guns in hallways.
Yes.
Which I think visually just looks so cool and just like so stimulating to the eye. Like, because like, don't get me wrong, like sword fighting's cool and all, but when you're shooting rounds of bullets just at walls and at people and you're doing spinning and stuff, and everything's in slow motion and you just see all the particles like breaking off the walls and stuff, it just looks so cool compared to just really, in the same hallway. If they had a sword fight scene, it just wouldn't look as cool, I feel like.
And you know what, you have to hand it to them for doing shots like that, especially in the first movie. That first main hallway shootout scene in the first movie, you know, the elevator, you know, shootout, they had, you know, all kinds of small explosions and all those tiles and stuff go off when they had, you know, Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss and all the rest of them doing like cartwheels and stuff on wires. And can you imagine at high stress? It's like, we're going to blow up everything. And if you mess up your cartwheel, we're going to have to I'm like, oh, don't mess up, don't blink, you know, don't mess up. But
it looks
how
so good.
Cool does that?
Exactly,
and it looks so good, and it's also real, so it's going to look real, and it's just So you did get more of that
this movie too. Yeah.
Did you like the whole idea of them going completely inverted and on ceilings and on sidewalls and stuff, or did you think
fun? It's just like an upgrade to the Matrix. I feel like it makes it easier for them to hit their head, but
I thought it was cool the last little shot where, you know, when the guy goes up upside down and Carrie-Anne Moss just goes, oh, okay, and then she does her whole Trinity thing. Yeah, bring back the kick. I'm like, I thought that was a fun little
her special move.
Like, oh,
A dash up.
A dash just it's like the Capcom code. That's hilarious. A dash up. That's hilarious. But
no, it looks so good. It looks so good. Like, I almost prefer that over punching too. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, that last fight was epic and it was incredible with the visuals and flying around and stuff, but it was cooler to me just to see the slow motion with guns and particles and stuff just like all over the place compared to just like amazing CG animation. Don't get me wrong, like it's incredible and the stuff they did, but when it comes to visually pleasing, it looked, and just the hallway shots just look so cool to me. And even if you go back to when they're fighting in the hallway too, and they're just like they're in really tight quarters and just like the tile on the wall and stuff, it just,
that's something I was gonna say, that lot more grounded and claustrophobic environment I think makes it a lot more fun and interesting and a lot more tension, whereas when it's this wide open cityscape in the sky, it's like, all right, boom, punch, and you can just fly back until you kind of naturally decelerate and stop. And again, those final scenes were super fun. But yeah, those indoor things are just a lot more fun as far as you know, just dynamic and stuff.
You know what's so funny? You mentioned that. I love when Neo gets punched in the train station.
Oh yes,
and he just gets he just goes into the wall, and there's like nothing he can do. But it wasn't like he flew away or he floated or you know what I mean. It's just like, oh, yeah, that's right. He used to get pretty beat up.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun way to remind you, all right, this is a Matrix movie, you know, and that happened, you know, pretty early on, you know, and so it's kind of fun to be able to see that.
Can we just get it out of the way, just so we get it out of the way?
Sure.
Robot baby face. What did you think?
Yeah, so very end when we have the main source, computer, things like that. So they had it made sense they had to make it some way that you could talk to the computer, right? Because there would be no reason for
00111000011.
It talks to you in binary. That would have been great. But I mean, why would it have any, human interface type thing? Because this was made by, computers for computers. So that wouldn't make sense. So it makes sense they'd have to make something up on the fly. But yeah, it did look.
The idea is cool though. It's like it controls every robot, and he can mold every little robot to do whatever he wants.
Yes.
It almost gave me the idea too, where all the robots are him. Is he is the Matrix or the main thing the only robot that exists, and he just controls everyone else with his own brain? Like I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's like a hive mind thing.
Yeah, hive mind. Yeah, I think that's kind of what it is.
I don't know how it works, but it's pretty incredible.
Hive mind is like it's all a shared intelligence, right? Whereas I feel like that's a main intelligence, and it's kind of controlling everything. But I
think hive mind, if we go to B, is like the queen controls everyone. So that's why, like, if you destroy the queen, everyone else dies. And I feel like if that is set up, maybe in this movie, there's just one little bullet to this tiny little robot in the center of everything or whatever. No, it's like it's gonna be like an old school Dell computer, like in the middle of the elevator, you just like unplug it. Matrix destroyed.
So old school. Like, was it Gateway or Dell that had the little cow pattern on it? It's gonna have that old thing, but you know what? I don't think the cow pattern, but it is the science fiction thing to do, to have a talking computer like human head like that. All kinds of science fiction, books and games and shows and stuff all have that same thing. So it was a safe thing to do. It sounded cool, as far as how it sounded. It was just, we were talking about this, and Nick had brought up the babyface thing, and I think a lot of people had problems with that, just the way it was depicted. Yeah. But I didn't think it was so much a babyface. It just seemed really smooth, just because it was the floating, Sentinel stuff on it. But you do get stuff like that in science fiction shows,
but we got it always out of the way.
Yeah. The AI is always some young child type thing, that's a common. But this guy had a deep voice, young baby face. So
it would have been cool if it was like morphing to tons of different types of faces and voices too. Like it can't decide,
Speaking of which, morphine and science fiction, the final battle with all the robots, I was getting a huge Terminator, I almost, Skynet. It made me long for a Terminator movie, which we've never really gotten. We got a little bit of a Terminator Salvation, where we actually got a future war, but I almost felt like that's what we were getting a little bit. We almost had these Terminator exoskeletons that the guys were in, but man, the stuff did look cool.
Visually it was amazing.
Visually it looked great.
Can you imagine Arnold in one of those suits?
Just freaking out. Yeah. Oh, man. Come on, you got to get to the gate. You got to open it. Come on. Trinity's coming. Come on. Morpheus is on his way. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Imagine Matrix 4, the big reveal is Arnold Schwarzenegger alongside. But
I'm here to pump you up.
Yeah, they're gonna jack me into the Matrix, because I'm already jacked in my left arm and my right arm. I'm all ready to go.
It's good. That's awesome.
But I can't even think now. That's just throwing me off so much. But
he's thinking like Arnold now. Oh, great! He wants his protein drink.
I want my protein, my vanilla, chocolate covered protein. Yes. But you know what? The mech robots looked really cool. I thought it was weird, that the guns animation had holsters. What's that?
The weight. I was gonna say the weight was really good with it too. How they moved around and stuff like that. And even though it was kind of funky the way they move inside, but it looked good. It's amazing.
And that's one thing I was going to say is, whenever you have people that are supposed to be riding on CG creatures, usually that shake and that weight looks really weird. And you had a little bit of there, but for the most part, it worked pretty well.
Especially when that captain guy first got in it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, but overall, it worked really, really well.
Oh,
and
yeah, totally.
Again, I told this story a little bit in our second episode, but the Wachowskis are notorious for changing their mind much to the dismay of visual effects artists in their lives and working crazy hours and, having to change all kinds of stuff. And can you imagine? They did 2 feature-length films released 6 months apart. Can you imagine what the crunch must have been like for this last film?
It was probably more crunch than a Nestle Crunch bar.
So just to rehash, kind of the story I talked about, for Speed Racer, one of my kind of mentors, he had worked at Digital Domain on Speed Racer, and he had worked, this is not just him, but everybody that worked at Digital Domain on Speed Racer, they worked 7 days a week, overtime every day for 3 months straight because the Wachowskis kept changing their mind on that movie. That was just a one-off movie. You can imagine for The Matrix 2 and 3, they were shot back-to-back, released within 6 months apart, how bad the crunch must have been for this. And the story that I forgot to tell for the second movie, but I'll tell for this one that we had talked about in one of the podcasts, is that I had an instructor in graduate school, and this is not long after the third Matrix was released, maybe a year or two after. And he was telling us, he goes, yeah, he had worked on the Matrix, I don't think he worked on all 3, it was maybe 2 and 3, maybe all 3. But he said, he goes, yeah, the third Matrix movie, the visual effects studio had to call them in and say, hey, like, to the Wachowskis, like, hey, you guys, we're not going to be able to finish your movie. You need to sit down right now and start cutting shots and cutting stuff out of your movie. We're not going to be able to finish. And supposedly that did happen. I haven't seen that confirmed in any articles or any like special features. If you guys happen to have information on that, please post it down in the comments because I'd love to be able to see that, kind of confirmed, because I haven't seen that confirmed anywhere before. But, that's someone that was on the ground level that I definitely trust and heard that, from the horse's mouth. And that'd be very interesting because you did get way less of the Matrix type fighting in this movie. And you did get a lot more dialogue type stuff in this movie than in the other ones. And I'm curious if they were trying to, they had to cut a lot of sequences. They were just trying to explain more stuff. Because I did like the dialogue in this. I liked the theological questions they were asking and what they were trying to get at as far as the story. So I didn't feel like they cut out things they didn't need to. In fact, like Nick and I were talking about in the podcast in here, it's like the gun sequences with the mechs, that probably could have been shorter. That maybe went on a little bit too long. So it's not like they cut out too much.
Shorter.
Yeah.
We talked about it in the podcast is because it's beautiful, it looks amazing, but we just aren't attached to anyone in that battle, really. I mean, there's very slight attachment. It's like to the point where you're like, they're really hoping that we feel attached to these characters. But visually though, this is a VFX stuff, stunning, incredible. Even the swarming just looks so beautiful. Like there's and then like the pulled back shots, the epic pulled back shots are just incredible too. And even the whole flight sequence was really cool. It was like the whole is it Star Wars is when they go, is it Star Tours?
Yeah, the Death Star. Yeah, it was Star Tours and then Death Star when they're flying
I'm
through
thinking about
stuff.
when they're going through the giant meteorite ice thing and they're like breaking stuff.
Yes. Yeah, it's Star Tours.
That's what I like, right? That's because they're hitting stuff and it's like this tight little corridor and they're like that, which is also Star Wars and other probably amazing flights, sequences we've seen throughout our lives and stuff. But it was really cool. I liked how Morpheus was just kind of the passenger for that too. Like he was along for the ride, you know what I mean? He was just like, I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying,
You know what? That was a part that I kind of forgotten a little bit until I was watching it again. I'm like, this is a really exciting, section of that. And
because we care about those characters. We care about those characters.
We do. Because we got her as a major character throughout, a good portion of the second movie.
A romantic interest, to Morpheus too.
Again, Morpheus is a major part of that, whereas Morpheus makes it back to Zion, but he's not involved in that final battle, so he's not really part of that.
He just like walks in front of the line. He's like, Neos did it.
So I mean that was a very engaging part of that with the characters that, like Nick was saying, we're invested in. So that worked a lot. But man, those close quarters, the lighting of the electricity coming off of the like I guess with the sensors or whatever on the ship and
they're
stuff.
hover pads. I don't know what they're
really,
called.
really cool. Oh, it looks so cool. And just I love the lighting inside of Zion and all the gates and all the gears and the chains and stuff. It was so cool looking. All of that is all
warmth
fabricated.
Color of Zion is so cool because everything else is so warm. The colors of Zion, and everything else is so cold around it too. And obviously, it's a design on purpose because there's less life. The life is there in Zion where everything else is mechanical and robotic and stuff like that. So it looked good.
Yeah. And
But
speaking of
did Neo look good with his eyes missing?
We'll have to talk about that. But speaking of a one-off shot that I did think was a cool shot, they didn't have to have, but I thought added a bit is, when Neo and Trinity are trying to evade, the Sentinels that are being shot, and they go up through the clouds, and you get that shot where they go up into the clouds. Because the whole movie, aside from when you get, I don't think you ever really got a nice sunset except at the very end of the movie in The Matrix, when you saw the real sky for once, up above the clouds in the real world. And, Trinity was the only one that got to see that because Neo was blind at that point. It's like, what a cool shot. The matte painting when they first go up there was just beautiful. And then, but I thought that shot was just so beautiful when they break through those clouds and, you're not expecting it. You're revealed to it as much as Trinity is in just that moment. And that's, basically right before she dies, right? Like after they come back through the clouds is when, she's hit with everything else and they hit the building and she's gone right after that. So that's kind of like her, one of her swan song last moments. And it's just a cool moment, even though it's just a moment. Did they have to have that in the movie? No, but it was a really cool matte painting, really cool moment as far as, the effects aiding, the pace of the movie and the scenery. So the eyes, what did you think of the effects and the makeup and stuff? Like, dude, that looked pretty gross. Like when he got hit with that electrical stuff and his eyes, like you can't really tell it's like makeup effects on there. I was like, oh God. Like I remember the first time I was watching that, I was like, oh, that looks pretty gross.
It's intense.
Yeah. Now,
and then once his eyes, we saw a new power, right? Where he was able to see like gold lights. It was gold lights, right? Like it was like a new sense, right? Like a way he sensed
and I was curious to ask you that because you didn't like the Matrix vision in the second movie where everything was kind of green.
Was it numbers?
Yeah, it was numbers. Yeah.
Was it numbers for this?
Oh. It was more of I think it was an organic glow versus a numbers green.
Yeah, it wasn't as numbers, right? Yeah.
Did you like this? I think there were still numbers in there, but it was more glowy.
I mean, I think it worked because it was like buildings and stuff for the most part, and it wasn't like people.
Organic. Yeah, people. Yeah.
I mean, we saw Mr. Smith with his glasses, but but like for the most part, like it was mostly just like him walking and like, the buildings around him and stuff like that, like a city of gold and stuff. And not like pumping hearts and going into bodies. You know what I mean? Like, Like it wasn't like in your face, like this is 3D animation. Look at us. It's more like, whoa, this is cool. But you get away with hard surfaces and structures over organic materials.
More,
like crazy in 3D stuff.
But they made it, whether it's a little bit easier or not, they made it look beautiful. Like those cityscapes and that glowing gold that Neo sees. Yeah. I mean, it looks gorgeous, man. It looks. It really, looked good.
I was even a fan of the design of Robot City. I'm calling it. I don't know what to call it.
Robot. It's not Cloud City like Star Wars. It's Robot City. Nice, Nick. Really creative.
What would you call it?
They named it. What was it? Machine City or the
Wow.
Source?
Okay, that's so Machine City.
I don't know.
It's so much better than Robot City. But okay, so then he gets
AI Town.
And I thought it was fun to finally see a different type of robot. Because the whole time we've only seen the Seekers or whatever they are
Sentinels,
called, the Sentinels, and then we saw these little baby robots like crawling on the ground. It's like, this is cool. I want to see more robot designs, but we didn't really.
Yeah, it was almost like a biosphere, not a biosphere, but like a whole organic life, kind of circle.
What were their jobs?
What's that?
What was all those little robots' jobs? That's what I really want to know. No, I'm just kidding. But it looked good. It looked good visually. I was very, very impressed with everything 3D in this movie. I mean, obviously, there are its flaws and kinks to it, but overall, it's amazing how well it's held up over the years.
Oh yeah, effects wise, I can't think of too much to nitpick. I mean, how the
Mr. Smith fight, I guess, would be.
I was gonna say, from a entertainment standpoint, like I would have rather it been a close quarters, type thing. But as far as the effects are 100%. Yeah. Like the effects look great. Like that was a digital, Agent Smith getting punched in the face like that, and all the ripples and everything look just as good as anything else you get.
And
now,
the little water spheres looked incredible.
Yeah, and one of the big hits against the second movie that Nick and other people had was the cloth simulations looked a little bit off. Now, granted, we're not getting any big.
It was dark,
darker,
though. It
and we're not
wasn't
getting a
daylight.
huge cloak.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a different lighting scenario, but there was no detractions in this one.
Looks so much better in the dark, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Visually, because like that fight in the alleyway with all those guys, look, it's just midday. It's like you can just see all the mistakes, which is hard. It's hard to hide. That's why like Underworld's always taking place at night because of the VFX budget. But but you know what I mean? Like, because you can hide a lot. You can hide a lot with, you know, the shadows and the intense lighting and stuff.
And a lot of times it works for the story anyway. I mean, I feel like almost for like that second Matrix movie, they're like, you know what? We're going to take the absolute worst case scenario and we're going to show you, you know, and they just, I guess, wanted the challenge.
Yeah, that's like what Marvel does now. They're like, yeah, we'll do a day fight scene, and, you know, and then DC's like, we'll do it all moody at night, and it's like, no, it still doesn't look as good.
But from the
Snyder cut, no, I'll give the Snyder cut some props. It looked good.
Yeah, going back to it, for 2003, this movie is amazing visually, and it's a bummer because again, aside from a few other movies after this. ESC, you know, the visual effects studio that was formed by Warner Brothers to do the Matrix movies, they didn't exist after this. They did Constantine, which is still one of my all-time favorite visual effects movies. They did this, and then they did, I think, Catwoman and maybe a couple others. But Catwoman
they
was
did
the last
Catwoman
movie.
too? Oh, man. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. They closed after that, if that tells you anything.
Who knows what the budget was and the time constraints and all that
Well,
stuff.
I mean, you know what? I think it wasn't that. I think it was just more that Warner Brothers looked at it. It's like, you know what? It's not worth the money for us to keep a visual effects studio going just to have a visual effects studio.
I was just talking about Catwoman. I was trying.
Catwoman.
I was trying to give him a cop out, like, you know, the budget, you know, or the direction it had maybe for style, because Constantine is visually beautiful.
Oh,
because
it's one of my favorites.
The framing and but Catwoman's just like, we got to make a movie about Catwoman. Yeah, let's just do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's all. Like, we got Halle Berry involved. This is gonna rock. Like, we're gonna be okay. You know, but it wasn't okay.
What can go wrong? I never saw it, but yeah, I was like, what can go? Well, you know what? Yeah, I had some stories about some of my instructors that worked on Catwoman. They're like, yeah, this movie was so bad. Even staring at Halle Berry all day is not worth it. You know, there's like, they're like, it's not worth it. This movie was horrible. Yeah, you know. So yeah, but Constantine, we might have to cover that someday because that is a stellar, one of my favorites, like very influential film for me. And then it's another Keanu Reeves movie, so that'll be great for the channel.
Excellent.
So. Excellent. So you know what? Now I think about it, some of my favorite effects movies, special effects and visual effects, are Keanu Reeves
Bill and
movies.
Ted.
I don't know left. Well, not Bill and Ted, but I was thinking Bram Stoker's Dracula, one of the very last movies done traditional way, and they did it on purpose. They had the more visual effects ways, but Francis Ford Coppola wanted to do it traditional. So Speed. I like it for that. Oh yeah, Speed. That's a good movie. That's not one I think about, but when we have the Matrix moves and things like that. But anyway, but long story short, some really cool stuff.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Speed. So, did you enjoy this about what you were expecting it to?
Yeah.
Okay, what you're expecting. Yeah. I enjoyed this more than I was expecting to.
That's good.
And the last time I saw it, a handful of years ago, maybe not even a handful of years ago, I liked it more than I did before. So it's funny.
They're
over time, I'm enjoying this more.
They're
over
bad,
time.
But they're not like unwatchable.
I really liked them all three this time.
Yeah,
so,
I mean they're doable every 5 years.
I really liked the first and second ones, and then I didn't like the third one.
I really liked the first one.
The first ones, I think most people really like, if they like that type of science fiction. Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, this is the last installment of our original trilogy, but it's not the end of the Matrix.
Oh,
so
we got more.
we have the end of December 2021. A new installment coming out. We have the Matrix Part 4, which is Resurrections, coming out. Nick and I are tentatively very excited for this. We just did a trailer breakdown for that. Obviously, if you're watching after that's released, definitely check out. We're going to be doing some coverage on that. Let us know down below what you thought of the Matrix Part 3. Some of you may be watching the original Matrix trilogy for the first time after this new movie hits. If you haven't seen that before, we're curious to see if your mind is blown by the first Matrix and the other ones the way that we were the first time. Yeah. The first Matrix blew my mind. So if you guys were hit like that, down below, let us know. Or if you're like, old people go back under your hole. You know, it's like if it's just like regular stuff for you now. I'd be curious
under
to
your
hear.
hole. I love that.
Yeah, I don't know what I was trying to get at there, but you know what? Old people's minds work differently. But anyway,
who lives under the hole? Do and John and Nick do. I don't know. I was trying to do a SpongeBob SquarePants remix.
And with that, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.